Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, degenerates of all ages, welcome to yet another edition of Burnt Coverage, Week 13, Running Back Edition. I'm your host, Joel.
I'm Curtis.
And, yeah, Week 13.
Week 13, God.
Running backs. Week 13, getting to the playoff push.
Speaking of pushing, nah, I got nothing. Running backs, eh?
Salt and pepper's here.
Ooh, push it. I'm going to start off with the most obvious running back play of daily leagues this week because I'm an uncreative bastard. And probably somebody that in your your yearly leagues you've been picking up. And that's David Johnson. David Johnson, most boring name in the book. DraftKings 3,400, 5,900 on the duel. He is the current starting running back for the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals are the best offensive team in the league. Believe it or not, I was shocked too. I thought the Patriots had it, but no, the Patriots had a few struggles and dealt with injuries the past few weeks. The Cardinals have taken the reins on that. As you know, I'm a big Carson Palmer supporter, so I appreciate what he's been doing. Back to David Johnson. David Johnson against the St. Louis Rams this week. I know what you're thinking. St. Louis Rams, fantastic defense, and you just shouldn't play him no matter what his price is. However, St. Louis is 21st against the run. How did that happen? Oh, because the last few weeks the Rams have fallen off a cliff. And Bruce Arians just today said that we expect David Johnson to have 25 touches in our offense. Now, that's not 25 carries. That means that he'll get a combination of receiving and rushing attempts. He actually has had quite a few receptions this year. In fact, all the way back in week 1, he had a 55-yard reception for a touchdown. He also, in week 2, had a 108-yard kick return for a touchdown, which is a Cardinals record. So he is a big play threat. Of course, taking over for Chris Johnson, who is 4th in the league in rushing. So he's going to get all of his carries. And if you were never a big Chris Johnson fan and thought, well, either A, this is a fluke and he's the product of a good passing offense, or B, he's old, he's going to fall off a cliff, well, guess what? Maybe both just happened. And now here we have a rookie who has a lot of talent and has proven it already this season, going to be taking the reins for Chris Johnson for the rest of at least the regular season. We also have Andre Ellington. Are you afraid Andre Ellington's going to get a few touches? He's not. He has turf toe, and he's already been declared out this week. So at least for this week, David Johnson is the bell cow. I expect him, DraftKings 3,400, FanDuel 5,900, to really explode those prices. Could even be a 100-yard rusher. We saw last week with the Tevin Coleman thing. The Spencer Wares of the world. There's a number of running backs that have stepped up. Thomas Rawls, who have stepped up and produced. I expect David Johnson to be in that kind of conversation this week.
Yeah, I mean, David Johnson was one of the names that we agreed upon in the pre-show meeting. He's going to be a 3-down back. There's nobody else left, and this is the best offense in the NFL at this point. St. Louis is a name defense, so a lot of people will shy away from them just because, it's St. Louis, they supposed to have a good defense. But you're right, they actually are giving up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs the last 5 weeks. And he's dirt cheap. Like, he's going to be highly played, but I really think he's such a good value. Like, there's no way he doesn't pay off at least triple his price in this week. There's nothing wrong with this play.
And there's no situation in which St. Louis is going to run up the score on Arizona. Mm-hmm. Arizona is one of the elite teams in the league right now. St. Louis has shit for quarterback
Nick
and
Foles
wide
is starting
receivers.
again this week, so
that's not going to happen. There's certainly going to always be in this game a ground presence for Arizona. I wouldn't even be surprised to see a run pass offense for Arizona. They don't necessarily do it a lot, but they do have a couple banged up receivers. Sean Brown's coming back. Michael Floyd's coming back. Really, oddly enough, Larry Fitzgerald's their only surprisingly healthy wide receiver right now. They might just take advantage of this 1 week chance to give David Johnson, their rookie, a lot of touches. and continues to cement their place in the NFC playoff picture.
Yeah, I really think that this is a game that they don't really have to go full throttle for their offense. They can kind of just pump the brakes and let Carson really just catch his breath for the stretch run here, and just lean on David Johnson this week, because they can win this game without going all 100 miles an hour, like this team usually does. So yeah, great play.
And 100 total yards is not the question. I mean, he get 20 carries for 60 yards and 5 catches for 40 yards. He's already paid it without a touchdown.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a good, really safe floor, but actually a pretty decent ceiling as well.
Yes, absolutely. And so, when you mentioned David Johnson, what other name do you think of? None other than Adrian Peterson, obviously, because he's the next Adrian Peterson. I'm going to go Adrian Peterson this week going against the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, I'm going to pick on the Seattle Seahawks this week. AP is, we all know AP. I don't got to sell him to you. He's the best running back in the NFL, hands down. Just don't piss him off if you're his kid. He's going, last week he went for 29 carries for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns against, granted, a terrible Atlanta Falcons defense. Seattle is not that good against the run. Their secondary is what scares people. Their run defense has put up respectable numbers, but that's more of a factor of them not really facing elite backs. Adrian Peterson is an elite back. You're going to pay for him this week, but he's actually not the most expensive running back on the board. That's Devonta Freeman. But for $200 cheaper, I would rather have AP in my lineup. I just really think, granted, yes, we try to find the value plays for you in this show, but sometimes you have to take the obvious plays, and I really think this is an obvious play, especially when there's you can save money in other positions this week, and like teaming AP with David Johnson ticket, I think that's a great ticket to play, because it's such high floor, high ceiling potential for those two backs, or even if you want to, there's another couple backs we're going to mention later on, to pair it with a higher tier running back like AP. 6,600 on DraftKings, 9,100 on the duel. AP all day.
Hard to argue against AP, but I will. Last week we saw the Steelers' recipe for success against the Seahawks, supposedly, was going to be throwing the ball, and they did it to the tune of over 450 yards in the air, with D'Angelo Williams getting 8 carries. Granted, D'Angelo Williams is no Adrian Peterson, and I understand that.
And Teddy Bridgewater is no Big Ben.
It's true. But you have to look at what Teddy Bridgewater has to throw to. Not much. Stephon Diggs, who's a 2 or 3 catch wonder in some games. He has never put up anywhere near like a Jarvis Landry sort of game where he's getting 8 or 9 catches in a game, and the ghost of Mike Wallace. So you have those guys covered, obviously, by the former Legion of Boom, now the Legion of Bust, but still formidable opponents. And a lot of focus is going to be put on AP. I see AP getting 20 carries, no doubt, 20 carries. It's just, can he break the big one? And this has been AP's season in a nutshell. I think most of the people who have watched Vikings games this year, it's been a lot of like 3 and 4 yard carries, and they'll break a 40-yarder. Same as my Doug Martin. It's been a lot of like decent gains and then a couple of huge gains. Last week he did it against Atlanta, basically the game winner. So can he break a big one? Yes. But you've got to kind of have your fingers crossed. The defenses are going to put 8 in the box against him. Seattle's going to trust their corners on the weak receiving team of Minnesota. And I'm not saying it's a bad play, but you're certainly putting a lot of money into it.
He's made a career of that. Like, AP has always been a really poor game 15 carries for 40 yards, and then followed it up with a 20 carry for 200-yard game.
But he's had a good game.
But it's not consistent like every other game.
He's the leading rusher in the NFL. I'm not going to shit on him too much. All I'm saying
he
is
the offense of this team. Come on, and I would like to say the one thing that the Seattle defense is missing. Who are they missing? That is the missing link that made them a great defense.
I don't know.
Byron Maxwell.
What?
That's the key.
Yeah, because he's really doing it for Philly.
But I'm telling you, they took Byron Maxwell out of that defense, and that defense has suffered considerably. Yes, he's not.
I was gonna say Michael Johnson.
No,
I guess
he's not he's not the number one, but he's a great piece in that defense, and without the Byron Maxwell playing,
your nickel corner, I guess, is fairly important. I guess.
I'm done.
Go on.
You're right. It makes no sense.
And I'm not arguing against necessarily, but I'm saying that I'm gonna throw a little shade, as the kids say, to it. Speaking of 30-year-old washed-up running backs, I got one too, and that's DeAngelo Williams. DeAngelo Williams, DraftKings 5,600, 7,200 on the duel, playing the Indianapolis Colts. Not your daddy's Baltimore Colts, and not your uncle's Peyton Manning Colts. These are the Matt Hasselbeck-led Colts.
Undefeated Matt Hasselbeck.
Which is, I mean, give credit where credit's due. Game managing Matt Hasselbeck is better than 350-yard, 3-interception Andrew Luck. So let's just put that out there. The Colts are they're the 22nd ranked rushing defense. They've got 22nd most rushing yards in the NFL to opposing running backs. And as I just mentioned, DeAngelo Williams had only 8 rushes for 29 yards and a touchdown last week, but he had 7 catches for 88 yards in the air, so still well and covered his price. So when Big Ben's in trouble, he has 2 guys he goes to, Heath Miller and DeAngelo Williams. Guess which one's not playing this week? Heath Miller. Heath Miller suffered a rib injury last week. He was having a good game. Yes, I picked him, sorry, but he got injured. He on the first 2 drives, he was the only person targeted, got a rib injury, out for the game. My apologies, I can't pick injuries. But here we go, DeAngelo Williams in the fold again. He's going to get at least 5 to 7 targets in the passing game. He had 7 catches last week. And he'll probably get his full allotments of carries, at least 15 carries this week. So for 5,600 DraftKings, 7,200 FanDuel, I feel like it's really going to have a high floor and a decent ceiling. We've seen him have good games this year. He's had a 3-touchdown game. He's had a 175-yard rushing game. And as we know, the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is always good when Ben's in it. And my counterpart spoke on Ben's behalf. Having Ben in there only helps DeAngelo Williams. It opens up a lot of running lanes for him. The defense is going to be covering Antonio Brown, rising star Martavis Bryant, and last week's star Marcus Wheaton. I'm not big on Marcus Wheaton. I'm just saying he did do well last week. And surprisingly, DeAngelo Williams is 21st in the NFL in rushing yards. Crazy this first few weeks and the little bit that he's done since Le'Veon Bell's been injured. He's been extremely productive, so I really look for DeAngelo to have a strong week against the Colts at home in Pittsburgh.
At home's the key. I'm really picking this as the blowout of the week. I think the Steelers are going to just trounce the Colts. I think this is going to be one of those fun games where we have a 100-yard rusher and a 100-yard receiver in Brown and Williams. So yes, if you can fit as many Steelers into your lineups as you can, because it's going to be a bloodbath.
And the Colts have played well this year. Well, on defense, I think they've been sort of overlooked. The Colts have always been a team. that has never been looked at for their defense. Yes, back in the day, they had the oft-injured Bob Sanders, who made a difference when he was on the field. Much like the oft-injured Sean Lee. I mean, when those guys are on the field, they make a difference. And now we have the oft-injured Vontae Davis, who's struggled this year at certain points against Antonio Brown. He's going to have his hands full, obviously, with Antonio Brown, who's more of a slot receiver, but is truly a number one, but plays like a slot receiver, much like Randall Cobb wishes he could be. And then we have Martavis Bryant, who might be a number one receiver in the future for the Steelers team. I see just a lot of trouble for this Colts defense. And as long as they keep throwing and putting the score up, that means they're going to have time to run. So D'Angelo's going to get his carries.
Are you saying that Antonio Brown is becoming Mike Wallace and Marcus and
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. I wouldn't go that far. I would say that Mike Wallace was a one route runner, and it's basically ended his career. Antonio Brown was.
No, but I'm saying like you have essentially two number ones running.
You have a 1A and a 1B.
Yeah.
Of course, the 1A is Antonio Brown, and I'm not saying that Martavis Bryant's going to eclipse Antonio Brown. What I'm saying is that in the red zone go long kind of aspect of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I can see Martavis Bryant taking that over, and Antonio Brown being your kind of hybrid. Antonio Brown's just a new freak of nature in the wide receiver. He's a tall guy, and you know, take a step back when I say this, but kind of like your Jerry Rice. He can run all the routes, catch all the balls. He's got good speed. And really, and might be the best wide receiver outside of Julio Jones in the league right now.
There's so many things wrong with everything you said there. I'm just going to let them all go.
That's fine.
Jerry Rice, come on.
How many 260-yard games does Jerry Rice have?
Come on, man.
What are we talking
It's a
about?
different league.
What are we
It's a
talking
different
about
league.
here?
Get out of here. What position are we doing? We're doing running backs.
I'm talking about Antonio Brown and Jerry Rice. You know.
This pains me to say, we're going to go with a running back from Denver. It's not the running back from Denver that I've been touting all season for literally 15 weeks now.
Yeah. Week 1.
I am going to suggest to play C.J. Anderson of the Denver Broncos this week, playing at the San Diego Chargers. C.J. Anderson is fresh off a 15-carry, 113-yard, 2-touchdown game. Easily his best game in real and statistical in fantasy game of the season. And that included the rare 48-yard rushing walk-off TD. So I guess that kind of makes it a rush-off TD. We're going to make it a thing. It is a timeshare still with Ronnie Hillman. Ronnie Hillman still may get the start, but Anderson the last 3 weeks has the last 2 weeks, has out-touched Hillman, and he has looked rejuvenated. And this, I don't know, I think this is a trend with C.J. Anderson because it's the same thing he did last year, and which made him a first-round pick in a lot of season-long drafts this year. That he really came on from week 8 on last year and really just took the entire Denver Broncos offense on his back and the entire NFL by storm, but did nothing the first half, 2/3 of the season. And it really appears that's where we're at again now. And Brock Osweiler is only helping the cause because now defenses have to respect the deep ball because Brock's got an arm, and that just opens running lanes up. Some of the running lanes that Hillman and Anderson have, that if you watch the Denver games now, are just amazing because those are not lanes that were there when Peyton Manning was at the helm. And I'm not advocating Brock Osweiler for Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's one of the best ever, but it just adds an element to this offense that was missing with a Peyton Manning that is in the twilight of his career. So San Diego. We also last week he added four catches for 40 yards. So he's doing it all. He's catching out of the backfield and he's getting the rushes. San Diego is giving up the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs this year. I think they're both running backs have an opportunity to explode. I just think that C.J. Anderson has looked better the last 3 weeks with Brock Osweiler at the helm than Hillman has. Hillman's still running strong and is still getting his points, but I think goal line back it's going to be C.J. Anderson. I think C.J. Anderson has more big playability than Ronnie Hillman at this point. and he's dirt cheap, 3,500 on DraftKings, 6,800 on the Duel. Both sites still have Ronnie Hillman priced more expensive than Anderson, so I think it's a great value play. Again, something to team with maybe an AP.
And this is one of those things that if you're a football dork, like there's just so much involved in this pick, and thank you, Joel, for picking him. This is another thing that both him and I liked. Neither of us liked C.J. Anderson any week this whole year, and this is just like a number of things. First of all, Kubiak loves to run the ball. Kubiak was really excited about C.J. Anderson. That didn't happen. Peyton likes to be protected when he throws, so Peyton liked Ronnie Hillman because he picked up blitz defenses. However, that a lot of that was because Peyton would drop back in this pistol formation and need that little time to find the short passes. Brock doesn't need that. He's healthy. In a weird way, I wouldn't say they're not afraid of him getting hit, but he's a big guy. He's like 6'8". You know, we're talking about Ben Roethlisberger type build here, who can launch the ball. And so this offense is kind of strangely reverted into from a Peyton, Hillman, Demaryius Thomas offense to a Brock Osweiler, Emmanuel Sanders, C.J. Anderson offense, and it's working. They just beat the undefeated Patriots. Not all these successes are necessarily Brock Osweiler's. I know the quarterback gets a lot of the glory. But and as my counterpart said, C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman have been getting these big lanes to run through. In part because nobody's going to sleep on Demaryius Thomas. Emmanuel Sanders is opening up the middle of the field. Actually had a huge long reception last week too. So both these guys are still threats. The passing game is actually flourishing under Brock Osweiler, which helps the running game quite a bit. Even the tight ends. I know Bernie Davidson did it last week, but he did well the week before. Owen Daniels has been a surprise, helping this young quarterback. So we're actually seeing more of the Denver offense that we're used to under Brock Osweiler, which is shocking. But
you're right.
It's on tape.
This is the offense that they wanted to run, and this is the offense that they were running last year and 2 years ago when they were just scoring at will against opponents. It's just coming with a quarterback that nobody expected it to be with.
Yeah, and we knew this time was going to come, but we didn't know how it was going to come, when it was going to come, and if it was going to be this successful right off the bat.
Yeah, this seamless of a transition.
To me, Brock Osweiler is a Flacco. I still think there's going to be mistakes. But Flacco and this year was just a terrible end for the Ravens. It really wasn't fair. I'm no Ravens fan, but it wasn't fair to them. But in the playoffs every year with a big arm, and part of that is you have to respect the deep ball. Brock Osweiler has that. He's decent accuracy, as we've seen too. So and knows the offense. He's been there 4 years, a la Aaron Rodgers. Not saying he's Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers got to study under Brett Favre, another Hall of Fame quarterback, learn the offense. So we're really seeing something. All this opens up the running game, and right now it looks like C.J. Anderson cheaper than Hillman.
Cheaper than Hillman on both sides. Yeah.
So for me, I'd rather take it on that, getting more carries. Around 15 carries a week. So.
Well, it's because they're still naming Hillman the starter, but all the starting running back in the NFL means is you're there for the first snap. That means that's all that means, and it's a very interesting comparison made calling him Flacco, because I think it's funny because I think he's kind of like with Osweiler. I think Flacco's his floor, but then Big Ben is his ceiling. So he's somewhere there. So
we haven't seen his ceiling.
I don't think so at all. I think as he gets more comfortable, running the team and in the huddle, I think it's only. I'm not saying he's going to get to Big Ben's caliber, but I think he has the potential to. It's just a matter of what he does with the talent.
They drafted and kept this guy for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we're seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, he was the heir apparent. They held on to him for this reason.
So once again, we're talking about running backs, and we just divert to another position.
Yep. That's what we do.
Yeah, and that's what we do here on the couch. Is that it for us?
It's not the only thing we do on the couch.
Hey. let's let the imaginations wander on that until next week.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Curtis, and I hope to see somebody else next week.
Wait, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
On the couch.
On the couch. See ya. Bye.
I get it.
Yeah, thanks.